Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Tutoring Tips episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is Aaron of Prepped and Polished. Please be sure to check out our website, www.preppedandpolished.com. For tutoring in person or online, call us at 781-753-9951 or chat with us instantly on our website. You can join our Prepped and Polished community on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Prepped and Polished. If you have a question after the show, please ask us a question on the chat feature on our website. We love hearing from you. All right, let's get right into episode number 242, SSAT levels and structure. The SSAT is used as a standardized test for students who are wishing to enter into independent schools across the U.S. The SSAT is broken into 3 different levels depending on the grade level of the student and the grade that they're wishing to enter. In our podcast today, we're going to be talking about each level of the test and talk about a little bit of each section for each level. If you have a student who is in 3rd or 4th grade and are looking to apply to 4th or 5th grade, they're going to be applying for the elementary level of the SSAT. This test has several sections that are also found in the middle level and upper level tests of the SSAT. Those sections are quantitative, verbal, reading, and writing. Each section is scored between a 300 and 600 scale, combining for a total of somewhere between 900 and 1800 total. Each section of the test focuses on different aspects of common material a student should have learned or mastered in 3rd or 4th grade in order to apply to 4th or 5th grade at independent schools. There is a quantitative section, which is 30 minutes, that has 30 questions. After that, a verbal section for 20 minutes with 30 questions. Students are then given a 15-minute break, then a reading section for 30 minutes, 28 questions, and a writing sample, which is 15 minutes. There is also an experimental section, which is somewhere between 15 and 17 questions, and lasts 15 minutes. In total, the test is about 2 hours and 5 minutes with break. The content that's covered in the quantitative section of the elementary level can include basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, as well as place value, ordering of numbers, fractions, basic concepts of geometry, measurement, and interpretation of graphs. The verbal section covers synonyms and analogies. Students will be asked to understand what a word means and what a synonym or same definition of that word. The analogies is used to create relationships between words. Students are asked to create a relationship and find an answer choice that follows the same relationship. The reading section is meant to test a student's ability to gather evidence from what the main idea of the passage is, to creating inferences based on information that is given, to understanding tone and the author's meaning, as well as details from the passage. The writing sample is ungraded but goes along with the application for students to independent schools. This writing prompt is used to identify how a student can structure a response given either a picture or a statement and see the creative writing that that student has. Students who wish to take the elementary level of the SSAT will want to make sure that they have a base foundational knowledge in both math and verbal, including vocabulary knowledge, but also practice their time management skills for the reading section as well as the others. The middle level of the SSAT are for students who are in grades 5 through 7 who plan to apply for 6th to 8th grade at independent schools. Each section, which is exactly the same as the elementary level, are graded between 440 and 710 per section, with a total between 1320 and 2130. However, starting in the middle level, the sections are structured differently. You first begin with a writing sample, which is 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. The first quantitative section, which is 30 minutes with 25 questions. A reading section, which is 40 minutes and 40 questions. Then another break, which lasts 10 minutes. A verbal section, which has now 60 questions for 30 minutes. And a second quantitative math section for 30 minutes and 25 questions. There's also an experimental section for 16 questions that lasts 15 minutes. In total, it is 3 hours and 5 minutes long. As with the elementary level, the middle level will also test students on math skills, this time though branching into algebra, geometry, and other quantitative concepts that are typically found in the later part of elementary and middle school years. In addition, the reading section will focus on literary fiction, humanities passages, science such as anthropology, astronomy, or medicine, as well as social studies, history, sociology, and economics. The material that's covered in the reading section is a little bit more advanced than the elementary level, so students will still have to figure out what tone is, or inferences, main idea, and the like. The verbal section now has 30 questions for synonyms and 30 for analogies. Students are still being asked to find the synonym for the stem word, as well as create relationships between the stem words in the analogies section. However, now the terms will be a little bit more complicated and more complex based on the student's grade level. The essay, now at the beginning of the test, will also include 2 prompt options for the student, typically seen as one creative and one structured. Again, this section is unscored, but goes along with the application for students to their independent schools that they are applying to. The importance of test prep for the middle level student is to get them prepared for concepts that they may not have covered yet for math, building up their vocabulary and ability to connect words together in the verbal section, as well as get more in-depth with complex topics in the reading section. The final level of the test is the upper level. These are for students who are applying anywhere between 9th and 12th grade, meaning students who are in the 8th all the way through 11th grade. Each section is now scored between 500 and 800 for a total of between 1,500 and 2,400. The structure of the upper level test is exactly the same as the middle level, with a writing sample at the beginning for 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. The first quantitative section for 30 minutes, 25 questions. Reading for 40 minutes, 40 questions, followed by a second break, this time for 10 minutes. A verbal section for 30 minutes and 60 questions, and a quantitative section, the second one, for 30 minutes and 25 questions. Finally, the experimental section of 15 minutes and 16 questions is at the end, for a grand total of 3 hours and 5 minutes. Each level of the test has an experimental section, which is ungraded, but gives the students the opportunity to see and experience more questions based on either the quantitative, reading, or verbal sections of the test. When students are preparing for the upper level test, it is important to remember that if you're dealing with an 8th grade student, there are going to be concepts and material that the student has yet to cover, specifically in math. Many students who are in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade have either completed some form of Algebra 1, 2, geometry, or even pre-calculus material. These concepts, though vary in terms of quantity, have the potential of showing up on the upper level test. So if you have an 8th grader who is taking the upper level, please be sure to work with a tutor to make sure that they can catch up on all the material that could potentially show up on the test. Similarly, as we are looking at the verbal section and reading section, the student will encounter more challenging terms, tougher connections and relationships, as well as more complex and varied topics in the reading section, followed by equally challenging questions. The point of the SSAT in any level, elementary, middle, or upper level, is to test the student's ability to gauge what they are capable of so that when applying to an independent school, the school understands what that student is capable of. I recommend that if you are looking to take the SSAT, you have your student work with a tutor. It doesn't have to be prepped and polished, but work with a tutor to help them understand specifically what they need to learn or what they can be tested on for the test. If you have questions about the SSAT, please feel free to call us or email us. We'd be happy to set up a consultation with you and your student to understand really what is it that they are needing in terms of prep work for either the test or simply with the process of the application for independent schools. Again, good luck for any of you out there who are planning to take the SSAT, and please let us know how we can be of help. This wraps up our show, episode number 242, SSAT Levels and Structure. Please be on the lookout for our next podcast episode, number 243. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.